Okay, everyone. Hello. We are live. Hi, welcome. I am Brea Starmer. I'm the CEO and founder of Lions and Tigers, and I am jazzed that you're here. We've got kind of a casual 30 minutes together, and I can see some of the comments. So if you are live with us and you want to enter some comments into the chat, I believe I get to see them. If not, my team will shepherd them over to me. But I'm excited that you're here. We are talking today about unleashing your organization, and we're going to be going through a blueprint for high-performing teams. Some of this is work that we do across Lions and Tigers for our clients, some of the work that we do as we go in and do workshops for organizations, and we're making that available for you here, kind of a high level and intro to this work. So I am really jazzed that y'all are spending some time with us today. So as I mentioned, I'm the founder and CEO of Lions and Tigers, so I get to work with an incredible team of consultants and clients who are thinking about the future of work and how we build blended teams, et cetera. So I'm going to dig into that here in a minute. So let's get going. We'll go into our slides. So I'm just going to make myself smaller and make the slides bigger so you can see it. So the first thing I want to start with is this really important and big statistic that by 2027, it's predicted that 50% of our workforce will be working in an independent fashion. So what does that mean? This means side hustles, gig work, consulting work, freelance, meaning time spent and income generated as a non-employee, non-W-2 wages. And the question really, I think, for a lot of leaders that they're grappling with right now is, what is your strategy? How are you thinking about embracing this trend? And it's so interesting, of course, as we look at labor economics and we think about, do we have the right supply of workers to do the work that our enterprises need to have done? You know, as you look at predictions and the things that are coming in our market, it's predicted that, well, we already know that 60 million workers identify as an independent worker. It's in the 40% category, and we are inching closer to that 50% category. One of the thought leaders that I read and listen to a lot is Paul Estes, and he says missing the gig worker revolution is like missing the mobile revolution or the PC revolution that happened decades ago. And so for leaders that are thinking about building these new models of work, thinking about the independent workforce is a really important one to consider. And of course, it's really interesting as you think about what we now have access to. So I like this image from Deloitte. When you think about a blended workforce, I wanted to just sort of root us in what that means. A blended workforce to me is a complete talent portfolio that looks at both employees and non-employees. If you look across an enterprise today, roughly 29% of our work is done by non-employees today already. So this is a big contingent of our workforce. And if you think of building high-performing teams among a blended workforce, you can see this kind of open talent continuum. So on one side, you've got traditional work. You're thinking about organizational employees, W-2, dedicated staff. All the way over on the other side, the dichotomy of that is this open talent network. So you could think of crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, those ideas. Now, what I think is really fascinating is when we blend these things together and we really open up the world of talent to our organizations and consider who all can we access and how can we access them. It's not just where is work done, it's who it's done by. And so for Lions and Tigers, the work that we tend to do focuses right here in this middle category. We've blended together these different models under one banner of Lions and Tigers. And so we exist in this managed service provider capacity where we come alongside an employer as a true outsourced partner. But we also bring in freelancers, contractors, folks you might consider a gig worker who are specialized SMEs. And those that continuum of talent is really an advantage to organizations as they think about, what kind of fractions of work that they need from folks. We also know that when we create fractional work, we create economic access to people who might otherwise not have access to full-time work or would potentially choose or are forced out of the workforce. So this fractional work really builds more inclusive communities of work. Now, if we're thinking about all the benefits of a blended organization, I want to share with you what I hear back a lot when we talk to leaders who are designing these kinds of organizations. Because for some, it feels very new, very foreign and innovative, and for others, they've been doing it for years. And I've asked a few leaders sort of what are the benefits, what are the reasons that you install a blended team? And here's what we see in that data. The first major benefit, of course, is that we can build more diversity into our organizations. Diversity for us looks like varying identities, intersecting experiences, and we know that more diverse organizations drive diversity of thought, but also lived experiences and builds environments where innovation can really occur. We know diverse teams are 35% more likely to outperform homogenous teams, and that we see 19% higher innovation out of those organizations. The other really big benefit here is access and specialization. I often say to leaders, like, what would you build if you needed just 10 hours of someone's time? Like just a fraction of someone's time, what would you like to bring in? And often the answers are so varied. There's so many kinds of skills that you could or would want to access. And so that specialization becomes really powerful. I mentioned earlier that so much of this work in the enterprise is already being done by a non-employee workforce. And so that specialization is certainly a powerful tool as we think about how we test, learn, and expand our services in our enterprise without having to hire full time. The other big, symptom that many of our workers are facing today is burnout. 69% of employees report feeling burned out. And the risk here is that more than 70% of them report that they'd be more likely to leave their job for something more flexible. So the challenge for our leaders is how do we build workplaces where people are not burning out and opting out? And when we have more distributed work, we can create some balance and also some redundancy in our system. And I mentioned that too, because the next reason that I hear from leaders that they build these kind of workplaces is that they're really trying to reduce risk. Now, in my industry in tech, we've seen more than 400,000 tech layoffs in the last 36 months. It has felt like a tsunami of layoffs as we've tried to right size our workforce coming out of the pandemic. And what we know is that when we lose workers, the folks that are left have to absorb that work. And we may lose just this tremendous brain trust of folks that are released to the market. Now, if we can build redundancy into our workforce, by building these layered teams, these blended teams, you can actually prevent some of that overspending, overhiring, and create the rhythm of business that we need so that we don't actually lose that brain trust. So these are all the things that we hear back from clients, but also thought leaders who are ahead in this blended workforce world that I wanted to share with you all. Okay, so I want to talk about how Lions and Tigers thinks about this, the way that we show up in the world, because we've got a little bit of a unique position when it comes to building teams that are high performing, that take advantage of these trends that we're seeing in the market. The way that we think about this is a system that we call highest and best use. Now, for those of you that are in the architecture or construction industry, you may have heard this term before. The way that it's been used in the past is it's developers come into a particular piece of land and they think about how do we maximize our investment on it given its actual boundaries. They're thinking about return on investment. Now, I think of it a little differently, and I think of it as the way in which we can design our work lives, where we can build a system of alignment between the work that we are uniquely positioned to do and take advantage of the sort of systems that are being built around us. I ultimately think of it as a system of leverage. And when I think of designing a blueprint for a high-performing team, individuals, and an organization, highest and best use is the framework that we install to think about operationalizing that. So let's talk a little bit more about that and what that looks like. When we think about the superpowers that are available to us in the humans that we bring into our teams, this is really about accessing and harnessing this precise skills that we could unlock thanks to this new talent revolution. I was talking to a leader this last week, and she was talking to me about some of the challenges she has with the 4 full-time employees on her team. between a mat leave, between a new project that her organization's been tasked with that she doesn't have the in-house skills to achieve, and also the growing pressure of the pace at which they have to work. She was kind of just saying to me, I wish that I could sort of draft up this dream team where I could just pull in 10 hours of this person or get an advisor to help me here. And so when you think about the kind of access of superpowers that we could unlock with highest and best use as a principle, it really starts to play out as we consider the kinds of strong ties that we can build when we put people into the work that they're uniquely positioned to do. And here's what we see when we build teams like this. And I want to mention that not only do we do this work for clients, but Lions and Tigers is built this way as well. Our staff team, our advisors, our consultants, the way in which Lions and Tigers operates fully uses this model. And here are the outcomes that we've seen alongside our clients when we think about a model like highest and best use. And apologies that some of our fonts are a little funky. My brand folks are probably not stoked about that. But when we think about this, it takes us from a system of busyness to a system of productivity. The outcome that we can expect in an organization that's aligned under highest and best use is improved individual performance. It takes people from feeling alone to feeling supported, because we know that we can see increased individual performance as a result. So we see those things in our employee surveys, our signals performance. It takes people from a place of fear and sometimes guilt to a place of safety, which rewards us with lower attrition. And lastly, it takes folks from a place of ambiguity, unsure of how they ladder up, to a place of clarity. And in that case, we're going to see increased business performance. So let's talk about how to do it. I want to share with you the crux of the highest and best use method, which is the 3 M's. The 3 M's play out in this way. Now, they're a system that builds, so I'm going to go through it quickly. The 3 M's are as follows. The first are our magnets. These are the things that pull us together, the attraction principles, the reason we get up in the morning. These are the things that fire us up. The second M is momentum. These are the unseen forces that propel us forward. These are the resources that we have, the things that are working well, that are propelling and making our business go, our product market fit. And lastly are our maximums. And a lot of systems miss this last M, because maximums are the real and true boundaries that we have as an organization that we need to respect in order to continue our progress. So the steps involved with building a blueprint for a high-performing team using this method, there's 2 steps. The first step is that we need to identify our organization's highest and best use. Now, the way that we do that is we take our 3 M's framework and we start to draw up an ideal business plan. It's agnostic of who you have and what you have. You look at your 3 M's, and we're going to actually give you some prompts to get started so that you can design a business plan that honors the objectives that are being asked of you. So the way that this plays out, our magnets are our business strategies. I'm going to give you some prompts in a moment. Our business strategies are the things that get people excited to come to work every day, the things that we feel are the bets that we want to make. The momentum in our organizations are our resources. Most often we think of these as human resources, but they also are tech. They also are our stakeholders, our allies, et cetera. And then our third maximum is pace. This is our collective pace that we can move at so that we can create sustainable work. So these 3 M's. So if you're a leader and you're starting to design the system, the way that you would do this is you'd start working yourself through some prompts to start documenting an ideal organization using the 3 M's. I'm going to give you just a couple of them. I've got a lot more in a playbook I'll share with you later, but here's a few to get started. When you're identifying your business strategies, here are a few questions you might think about. You might document the way that your team is aligned, your vision, your business mission. 2, you might mention the things that you can't miss, your bets, your focus areas. These are things that we have to all agree on and document. And 3, what is the thing that we do better than anybody else, our product market fit? We need to document that so that we understand what we're shooting for. Okay, our next step is our resources. We're going to start to document the things that are really working well, these unseen forces for us. So some people, it's budget, it's P&L. What are the dollars that we have to put into this initiative? The human resources that we have dedicated to it, I put RACI here, or an R&R grid. You might build out your stakeholder analysis here, and the folks that are aligning to you so that you can propel your business forward within your enterprise. Lastly is pace. We need to document what capacity we need to achieve these goals. Sometimes that's a gap around budget or a gap around headcount. And where are we being blocked? What are the market conditions or headwinds that we're up against? And a forecast for how we need to show up. All right, so those are the 3 M's that we think about when we're documenting an organization's HBU. And when these things all come together, the strategies that we were going after, the ways in which that we're propelling forward, and the pace that we need to respect, the combination of these things really is how we start to unlock an organization's highest and best use. Now, step 2 is we need to get everybody on board. And so step 2 is that we need to actually come through and integrate the team's individual highest and best use. And that's why I say this is a system, because we know that we have folks that do work on our team, whether they're employees or non-employees, and we need to be sure that we understand what they're best in the world at and how that aligns to our organization's objectives. And do we have any gaps? So I'm not going to go into depth into the individual highest and best use elements. We'll do that at a later date. It's in our playbook. But the things that you need to think about here, the 3 M's that we think about for an individual, are the magnet for an individual is their personal motivation, perhaps their personal mission that they are so excited about as it relates to your organization. Their skills, what are they great at, and how does that intersect with the momentum that your organization needs to drive? And then what are their personal boundaries? Are they time restricted, geographically restricted? Are they caregivers? What are the things that they need and document so that we can keep them in work? The other thing that we think about for individuals is what are the systems that we're building around them so that when they intersect with your business objectives, it's in a way where we're taking advantage of all of those outcomes of HBU. This looks like rhythm of business. This looks like culture, the way in which we enable individuals to show up, demonstrate their impact. Those are the sort of practical notions that a manager has to think about when they're inviting an individual into an organization that's built for high performance. I want to show you what this looks like when we map those things together. So here is these diagrams put on top of each other so we can show you how they layer together. So in the middle, you see the individual elements of their unique highest and best use, their motivation, their skills, their boundaries. They sit within an organization. So we look at sort of, do we have the right people who are motivated every morning to get up and come and attack the business priorities that we have, the strategies that we're putting in place? Do we have the skills in-house that we need to achieve the outcomes that we're trying to go after? Or the human resource needs match what we have? And the pace that the organization is expecting us to move at, do the individual boundaries we have match? Question is, do we have gaps in any of these categories? And if so, how do we start to close those gaps? And I think that's really where there's an incredible opportunity for us to think about a blended workforce as a solution to those gaps, opposed to the old playbook where we work people harder, longer, and we see some of those results in attrition. So I wanted to share just a brief story about a client of ours that we worked with in a very large tech enterprise. She was a little bit of a rabble rouser. She wrote this business case and got many millions of dollars worth of investment. She had 11 team members, full-time team members, that had proven a product market fit and received this investment as a result of their tremendous work. But when you get an investment like that, that means that your team now has to do, well, in this case, 20x the amount of work that they were doing in the year before. There was a resistance to try to figure out, how do we tap in consultants, advisors, extra capacity while we scale up our full-time team, because we need to actually triple in size. And how do we do that in the meantime? And so it was really incredible to see this leader trust my team to come in as what she called her outsourced leadership team while we helped her design that organization. So in that case, we pulled in an analytics expert who helped her do some business modeling to forecast what the business was going to look like 5 years from now and all of the quota that she had just signed up for. We worked our way backwards from the product build that needed to happen. And so we were able to figure out the skills that we needed across program management, go-to-market, product build, build, and in this case, it was a skilling initiative. And then we brought in a whole army of project managers to help document the operating procedures and the kind of business infrastructure that was required for this team to go through that change management motion. This was in a period of about 90 days. So it was truly sort of a swarming scenario where we came alongside this team. And then we also wrote the job descriptions for the full-time team members that would then be hired and help support that interviewing process while they hired on their full-time staff. What's been incredible is that through that process, they had no attrition of that core group of 11 that received the funding. And we still have a team of 3 or 4 folks that have supported that team over the last couple of years that has stayed on in a consulting capacity. So you can see sort of the rise and then readjustment of how a flex team can come in, support an initiative, and then see it play out over time. One of the most fun things that we did on that team was we built these PowerPoint decks that the team could take to their leadership team and demonstrate the incredible impact that they were having once that funding came through. That was really, truly the most fulfilling part, was to see those slides get written. Okay, I am nearly done with our content, but I want to leave you with this thought from James Clear. If you've ever read James Clear, he wrote the book Atomic Habits. And he talks about sort of incremental change over time. He says that if you change 1% per day, by the end of the year, you will have grown 37%. And so his quote is, you won't rise to the level of your goals, that you will fall to the level of your systems. And I think if we rely on our old playbooks for how we motivate and move talent in a way that we will continue to see some of the same outcomes we've seen. But truly, with this new model of work, we have so much opportunity to invite in SMEs, thought leaders, and really diversify the voices that we're using to build our work systems while we create economic access for folks that need it. So I just want to leave you with that thought, because it's something I have pinned up to my whiteboard here and I think about every morning, is the system of access that we're creating. And then lastly, I don't want to leave you without offering to help. And so I would welcome you to lean on us, lean on Lions and Tigers, if we can be helpful to you in this journey as you're thinking about building a high performance team. The first thing is that we love to come in and help individuals, but also teams really identify and go through this process to unlock your team's highest and best use. What does that look like? How do we get that documented for you? The other thing we do is we love to co-design these blended teams. What does that look like? Who's doing what? Who's got what ball? What accountability? How can we come alongside your organization so that it feels more flexible and fluid for what you need to achieve? And lastly, I honestly think we have the best fractional talent in the market. So if there is comms work, marketing work, operations, change management work, we would love to be the outsourced partner that you call in for that body of work. And the last comment here is that I have a playbook. This team has authored an incredible body of work in this highest and best use playbook, and it's talking about avoiding the all or nothing workplace. There's a QR code for you there to access, but of course it's on our website, easy to access, no gate required. It's all available for you there. And then if I can be helpful to you, email me, brea@lions-tigers.com. Feel free to find me on LinkedIn. We'd be happy to come alongside you and support this evolution, because I know that it's much better to go together as we build out these new systems of work. So with that, I hope you have an awesome day, and thanks for spending time with us. I really appreciate it and hope you're well.